I am so happy I decided to give this book a second try. Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and today, guys, I have got a book review for you. But before we get into that book review, please like this video and subscribe to the channel, as it does help the channel grow. And make sure to check that description box down below for information about my Patreon if you want to help support what I do. And that said, today, guys, we are talking about The Trials of Ashmount by John Palladino. This is The Tragedy of Sedaine, book number 1. And I've got a history with this book, and we're going to kind of talk about it a little bit. Essentially, this was provided to me as a review copy like 6-ish plus months ago, like a while ago. And there's one of my biggest triggers in this book, and so I closed the book, I DNF'd it, and I moved on. And then it never quite left the back of my mind. And so finally, just last week, I decided to pick it back up and see if it was just my mood at the time, because at the time I was a fresh parent, which could kind of give you an indication on what that trigger is. And we'll elaborate on that a little bit more. And I loved it. I loved coming back to this world. Not only is John an amazing individual, he's very supportive of the channel, even though I had DNF'd his book, which I have now finished. So I kind of wanted to give it another go. And like I said, I'm just so glad that I did. Right off the bat, if you like Tiago Abdallah's writing with the Ashes of Averin, A Touch of Light and stuff like that, but you just wished that he had the ruthlessness of early George R.R. Martin with characters, this is going to be for you. Basically, the dramatis personae of this book is called Those Who May Die. And there are just so many, just brutal efficiency of just marking off characters. So if you love an author who is just unapologetically willing to just kill off everybody, you're in for a treat here. So, Trials of Ashmount, what is this about? Well, it's kind of interesting because I feel like this is very much an introduction to this world of Sedaine. And essentially we have got 5 main POVs, and then rotating interludes around a court of a royal court, I should say. And these rotating POVs kind of seem unconnected until John starts working his bit of magic. And let me tell you what, it is magical, because he'll drop little references, or he'll have secondary and tertiary characters mention our main POVs, or meet them, or kind of brush against them. And slowly across, as this keeps happening, they get closer and closer and closer together. And I feel like it's all kind of going to intertwine and have this great payoff. And so that's kind of what I'm loving about this. And on top of that, he's nailed the voices of these characters. Because, make no mistakes, this is bleak like Joe Abercrombie First Law bleak. Where, nobody's really a good person. Everybody's in for it themselves. Even the person who is mainly good is no, I'm going to take care of my interests first. And that's something that's really, really interesting, because this is a bleak, dark world. And then you get kind of these flashes of hope throughout Trials of Ashmount. And then, sometimes that hope will go somewhere, and sometimes it's not going anywhere. And it's really fascinating to read. And I believe our 5 POVs, I'm gonna try and do these off the top of my head. We've got Edelbrock. Edelbrock is essentially this kind of old war hero. And I say old, he's an older war hero who's kind of stuck in this loveless marriage. He's got a kid with his wife, but he's kind of trying to con his way into a better life. This ends up leading him to have an affair, and he gets caught after he has killed the person to get what this person has. And then he ends up kind of as an indentured gladiator, and he is on a mission of revenge. Very interesting. Initially, I would have said Edelbrock was going to be the main POV. I don't think anybody particularly shines as a main POV, which I think is really cool, because it all works. Each of these characters grabs your attention enough for you to be oh, okay, I'm not missing another character on the page. So that is incredibly well done. We've then got Keldon. Keldon is this kind of son of a baker's boy. And he wants more for his life. He thinks he's very self-centered, he's very selfish, but like at the same time he's like, no, I'm better than everybody, I can go and be better. And he wants to go become a magicus. In order to become a magicus, you have to go and do the trials of Ashmount. Ashmount is this kind of magical university nestled at the bottom or top of a volcano, depending on like the cover art kind of makes it look like it's at the bottom of a volcano, but I think it's like kind of nestled near like midway up a volcano. But basically it's got this magical shield and it's like greenery and everything going on, and then outside is this blasted wasteland. I mean, you can see right here on the cover, this is Ashmount. And basically, in order to get there, you have to survive the trials. The trials are very grueling. It's got a very low survival rating, but even if you just go, you can get like a pouch of coin, and you can do whatever you want with that money. And so he sets off to do his trials. Then we've got Demry. Demry is this kind of disgraced magicus, and we'll talk about the magicus in just a second. Demry is this disgraced magicus who is on the run. He is on a mission of revenge due to somebody or something that happened in his past. And Demry essentially wants revenge for this slight against him. He's been crippled, he's been burned, and he is out for blood. So when we first meet Demry, he is very much like just going on a killing spree. And one of the interesting things about Demry is as the book progresses, he seems to get tamer and more sane, which is kind of interesting. So I'm excited to kind of explore his characterization a little bit more as we progress through this series. Book 2, Buzzard's Bowl, is coming out in June, so you've still got plenty of time to read the first book before the second book comes out. We've then got Sarah. Sarah is this village girl who, her family breeds, I believe, gyrfalcons, or they're these kind of birds that are very prized, and basically there's a raid, or they are tricked into leaving their village. And then halfway through this trek, that they find out that they've been tricked by bandits, and the bandits start killing them off in droves and abusing them, and she escapes, and then kind of becomes this knight, and kind of tries to find out like what she wants, what's important to her. She loses a lot of her family, and she kind of wants to protect people, but at the same time, like, she's very traumatized by it. And then the last person we've got is Felix. And Felix is kind of this nomadic individual. He is part of the camel clans. And essentially one day, Felix is just kind of minding his own business, and a voice called Speaker pops into his head. And all of a sudden, he can do magic. And so they kind of call on the magicus. The magicus come, and they're kind of disrespectful. And so the camel clans are like, you know what? We're tired of you looking down on us. And so they declare war, and they are going to go and kind of take lands and get respect. And Felix is very, very interesting because he's kind of socially awkward. He kind of wants to be left alone. I really enjoyed Felix's character. Now the magicus. Let's talk a little bit about the magicus and the magic system, and then we'll talk about Buzzard's Bowl, and then we'll kind of do a breakdown. Essentially, the magicus, they can tap into, basically there are three main disciplines. You've got the glyphis, the enforcer, and the concentrator, or the collector. There we go, the collector. So we've got glyphis, collector, and enforcer. And basically, these people have what is called the trace. And the trace can kind of go into any one of these particular schools. A collector will go out and like hunt down criminals, or, you know, if somebody dies right before their death, they can collect the trace, and then that can be used as kind of a magical source instead of using their well. And essentially, everybody has a finite source of magic. This is basically life-based magic. In order to do magic, you are spending your life. So say a healer wants to heal somebody. Well, I guess there's the healers as well, so there's 4. If a healer wants to heal somebody, they have to spend their years in order to heal an injury. The more severe the injury, the more years you have to spend. And this can lead like a 26-year-old looking like an 80-year-old and dying of a heart attack, just after like healing like 3 or 4 severe injuries. The enforcers kind of use the glyphis. Basically, the glyphis comes and kind of tattoos or draws on the skin all of these symbols that kind of tie into the enforcer's life force. And then that person can kind of tap those symbols and burn them in order to, which is in turn burning life force to do, like, powerful jumping attacks, force, wind, fire, all that sort of stuff. And it's just kind of very cool. The Glyphis, all they really do is they can tap in for an enforcer, and they make a lot of money doing it. They don't spend their life force. They're the only ones who don't spend their life force. And this is all controlled by the school on Ashmount. And then the kind of other great institution that we're going to kind of talk about is Buzzard's Bowl. And this is this kind of gladiator setting where Edelbrock finds himself after his fall from grace. And it's fascinating because I love a good kind of gladiator setting, but I feel like this one's going to be even more epic because we kind of deal with the breaking of Edelbrock, the building up of Edelbrock, and then we kind of get into what Buzzard's Bowl is going to be. This is kind of co-owned by 5 houses, and I don't remember all the names of the houses, but basically these are wealthy dukes and merchants, and it's very lucrative. It's very exclusive to go watch the gladiatorial games. These are not for everybody. It's really cool, and I think this is going to be expanded upon a lot in the second book called Buzzard's Bowl, which should kind of give you a hint. All right, let's talk about the trigger warning. Okay, so I DNF'd this book at 18% 6 months ago. And that is because there is an instant of graphic infant harm. And at the time I was a fresh father, so I put the book down. And when I restarted this book, I did not start back from the beginning. I started directly after that scene. So if that is something that bothers you, know that that is in this book. Other than that, this book was absolutely fantastic. Probably one of the best Grimdark books I have read in a long time. For me, we're going to kind of start going into the scaling. In terms of characterization, we're going to say characterization, it was a solid 4.5 out of 5. Like, I really enjoyed all of the characterizations. Secondary characters are kind of bland, but, I mean, you can't give everybody on the page personality in life, like, especially with as many characters that are in this book. Brutality. We're going to talk about, like, just from a brutal writing standard. I haven't seen somebody kill off this many characters since George R. R. Martin in early Game of Thrones and Clash of Kings. In terms of pacing, this book moves. This one's about a 4 out of 5, but I mean, it's still a good, solid story. Like, nothing feels really skipped. A couple sections felt a hair rushed to me, but they're very minor details. Essentially, sometimes a character will just be like, haha, you're doing a thing. And you never really, like, know how they discovered they were doing that thing. It just kind of moves right on past it. But that's a very minor complaint. In terms of darkness, I'm going to give this one probably a 4.5 to a 5 out of 5. It's not, like, the darkest of the dark, but there are certain triggers, there's just a bleakness to this world. Like, this is a grim, dark novel. If you had to ask me, hey, what's a grim, dark novel? I'm going to just point at Trials of Ashmount and go, that's one right there. It's probably one of the 4 darkest books I've ever read. Very, very good, though. In terms of structure, initially, I was not in love with 5 POVs. I will be honest. I was like, there's no way you're going to make me care about all 5 of these POVs. And then I ended up, like, caring about all 5 POVs. So that's very good. There's a lot of interludes, but at the same time, it's kind of this, just, you're getting this royal setting kind of deal, and it kind of works. So I'm going to say probably for structure, we're going to give this a 4 out of 5. It's really, really solid. Enjoyment. My enjoyment is probably a 4 out of 5 as well. I really, really enjoy the Trials of Ashmount. I enjoy the darkness. I enjoy the just bleak overlook of this. It was so well done. So overall, like, just in terms of the entirety of the book, I'd probably give this one a 4.5 out of 5. The only reason it doesn't get a 5 out of 5 is, I mean, I did DNF the book at one point, so, like, there is something in there that doesn't work for me, but that is pretty much the only thing in the book that doesn't work for me. Please, if you love dark novels, check out John Palladino's Trials of Ashmount, A Tragedy of Sedaine. I promise it is a treat, as long as you like dark books. That said, guys, that's all I've really got here for you. Till next time, peace out, stay magical, bye. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons. you.